Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Build a Business Success Secrets. We got Dave Seymour here in the house from You know him from Flipping Boston. How are you today, Dave?
I'm great, man. I'm great. We're just north of Boston, Massachusetts, and trying to pivot, man. Play the game in a new landscape, in a new world, and it's an exciting time. It's also a challenging time. But personally, I'm styling and profiling, brother. You know me. I roll with the punches no matter what.
You always do. Now, you and I know each other from really back when you were doing Flippin' Boston and had a whole educational series, which I know you still do. But we did a bunch of events for entrepreneurs, not just real estate entrepreneurs, actually, but all entrepreneurs in Vegas, right? That was probably 3 years. Well, we probably met like
maybe even longer. Yeah, we were affiliated or aligned, whatever term you want to use, with Damon John from Shark Tank, and we were helping out some of his students. I think you were on the panel as an investor, and we were doing like a Shark Tank pitch kind of a thing. And they asked me to bring some of that mad British energy to the arena, which I'm always up for. So yeah, that's where we met. And then we did a couple of those together. And it's funny, Brendan, I always think about, you said it earlier on today before we started recording, planting seeds. And I've always looked at every relationship that has made sense to me as a seed. Like if we'd have looked at each other 4 years ago and said we'd be doing a podcast with each other 4 years later, we would have went, well, I don't know, maybe. So it's like I love watching relationships come to fruition, whatever that may be. You know what I mean? Like we're not in each other's lives every day, but if I reach out and vice versa, there's always a connection there. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be around like-minded people.
Yeah, I agree. When I first met you, I didn't really know what to think, Dave. You had so much energy running around the room and doing all this stuff. People jacked up, screaming and dancing, and I mean, yeah. But then we got to know each other. I guess when you're in those environments, you're both so intense, right? We're running around and doing all this stuff. Right. But you have truly a great story of how you went from being a firefighter to being a real estate investor. And I know you've told this story before, but can you tell our listeners just a short version of really how that happened? Because you had a whole career, right?
Sure. And you know better than to set me up with short version. All right. Nice try. I'll do the best I can. I've been known to take some of the oxygen out of the room. Look, man, it's a story. I did an interview with Jack Canfield last week. Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Jack and I were talking, and we did a recording, like expert to expert interview. And he said something to me, and he said, David, it's almost, and please don't take this the wrong way, anybody listening to the podcast, but it was almost like a biblical journey in the sense that I came from another country. I'm an immigrant to the United States. I came here looking for something. I don't know what it was back then. I was just a kid. I was 19, 20 years old. But, to be on this podcast with you today, there's been a lot of bridge under the water. And with that came a lot of failures, right? Fail forward. Remember that saying, like we've heard that so many times. Don't avoid failure. Be smart, right? Be risk averse, but be prepared to fail forward. And for me, I was a product of a blue collar environment growing up in England. And I was trained very, very well to trade time for money. Right? I was very good at that. If you want to make more money, then you trade more time. But time's the one commodity we never get back. And, I turn around at 38 maybe? Yeah, 38, 39 years old. And I'm working 120 hours a week for somebody else. Seriously. Yeah, right? Time out. 120 hours a week. I worked full-time in the fire department. Prayed for the phone to ring for an overtime so I could trade another 10 or 14 hours, right? because I couldn't make ends meet. Then I would work part-time. Check this one out. Part-time retail security in a grocery chain, nights and weekends, trying not to get stabbed by shoplifters in inner city.
Like wearing a uniform as
No, I was undercover. I got closed circuit TV cameras. You know what I mean? I was one grade above the guy with the cap on.
Got you. All right.
See, I just let my ego come in there. It doesn't happen often. And then I was also working construction. Like I had a small construction company on the outside. And at 120 hours a week, you pay a sincere price for that. And it was my relationships, Brett, right? It's my relationships. You can't be a husband to a wife or a father to a son. And, the marriage went to crap. I couldn't participate in it. It was a dark day for me, bro. I'll be very, very, very direct with you. It was dark days for me. And, I'm sober over 30 years now, so I couldn't self-medicate.
Well, you can't. I think that's to touch on that. I think you could self-medicate. Maybe you didn't know, right? Because you can exercise and I just offer this because during this COVID time, as you know, sure, Dave, entrepreneurs are really just under so much stress. And
correct.
I think either of us would hate for anybody to turn to the drugs and alcohol. And I always try to push people towards that exercise. So I just throw that in there.
You just gave me a gut punch right there. A friend of mine said to me, he said, he says to me, there's three kinds of people going to be post-COVID. He said either a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. And I'm very sad and now proud to say I came out a chunk, but I'm going back to a hunk. Just started back on the exercise routine and getting back to where I need to be. Because, my physical well-being affects my mental well-being and vice versa, right? So
I absolutely agree. I actually, just as a quick aside, we'll get back to your story.
Yeah.
I am super disciplined. You know me well enough over the years to know that. And then, anybody who knows me who's listening knows that. And I was like, you know what? I am so resilient. This COVID thing has had no effect. My dentist said he thinks I'm absolutely crazy. And he's like, Brandon, you prepared your whole life for this. This is going to be fine. And then Dave, I go back, I use the Fitbit scale because it automatically logs it and uploads it. So I go back to my records and I was like, holy mackerel, I gained 5 pounds. And it wasn't that I gave up the exercise, quite frankly. It was really that as I look back, it was the diet. So, and my point in telling that is even the most resilient, disciplined, hardcore people are susceptible to these high stress environments.
Our body, as you know, dumps cortisol as a stress, process, for want of a better term. And that cortisol is such a damaging component. I'm in my early 50s. So I could very well be that typical 50-year-old guy with the man boobs and the belly and everything else. You know what I mean? And look, man, it's not. It's true though, brother. Come on now. It's not a moral judgment on anybody. It's an individual choice, right? God gave me one body. I choose to try today to take better care of it than I did for the past 3 or 4 months. I got I'm going to do a quick infomercial. I picked up a machine called the Hydrow, Hydrow, and it's a kind of like the Peloton, but for a rowing machine. And this was put together with a company out of Boston. And you do all these videos and you row with these beautiful women on this big video screen right in front of you. And even though she's actually not there, I don't want to fail, man. Like I don't, it's like, I'm with you, baby. We're rowing now. Let's go for a split and a sprint and everything else. But
yeah. So is that what you've picked up for the COVID? Yeah. You picked up this rowing thing?
Yeah, I picked up a rowing machine. It's called Hydrow. It's in the basement, and it's like the Peloton, right? With like you've got a screen and you can interact with other users and rowers. So it's kind of cool, man. I'm into it. I'm getting up early again. I'm up at like 5 o'clock. Do my quick morning routine, then jump on the rower, sit in the sauna, get hot and sweaty, come to work. So it's feeling pretty good.
How many days are you hitting that thing?
I hit it every day. I hit it every day. But they're short intervals. They're like 20, 25, 15-minute intervals that you do each day. And then, it's full body. It's definitely thighs and legs and chest and back. And it's a nice little workout. I don't want to go pound the pavement, man. I'm banging around 240, 250. That's not good for the knees. You know what I mean?
No,
So
man, 7 pounds of pressure per pound. You got to
yeah,
get back on that.
it's not pretty on these old bones.
And remember, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet.
That's the truth.
That is
the truth.
That's the truth. There's always one of these 5 of these guys or women in the gym that I always. Now, I'm not going to the gym right now, obviously, because it's closed. I sort of built this home gym that's worked out great. But you see these people and you're like, man, you're in here every day. I know you're working out because I can see you, but you're making no progress. Like just tune the diet. But you and I, we gotten off track. I want to go back.
We have a little.
It's sort of normal. Get back to your story. You're overworking yourself. You're in this bad place. I guess 30 years sober now, but at that point, or you were sober then. So what did you even like? Where do you find yourself?
Look, man, I'm not a huge religious guy, but I'm definitely a man of faith. You know what I mean? Like I believe that there's something bigger and better. I joked a little while back there about ego coming into the party. Ego stands for ease God out. And, in the TV world, there's a sidebar, you got to hang out with other TV people. And it amazed me how some of them believed their own press, you know what I mean, and drank their own Kool-Aid. And anyway, so I was hurting. My house was in pre-foreclosure. It was right as the market was crashing. And I'm looking for a way out. My marriage had ended. I was in a relationship with my now wife, Mary Beth. And I'm looking for opportunities, man. And I'm screaming and shouting and praying to my guy, what's next? What am I supposed to be doing? I've done everything I was supposed to. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. And I didn't steal. I followed this plan that everybody else laid out for me. And you sons of guns lied. You lied to me. You said it was going to be okay. And it's not. And I realized that day that things needed to change. I just had to.
And that plan was trade time for money?
Well, that was all I knew, Brandon. That was all I knew, man. I was, today I say to a lot of our investors, I bring a blue collar attitude to a white collar world. You know what I mean? Like I got no problem going 0 degrees today because that's how we did it, right? That's how we did it. Dig the ditch, 0 degrees. Fight the fire, 0 degrees. It's how I was trained. But as I'm in that dark place, I'm in my truck, F-250 back then, pickup truck. And I'm kind of like pounding on the steering wheel. And a commercial came on the radio, and it was Teach Me Foreclosure, a free 1.5-hour seminar coming to your neck of the woods.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, dude, that was it. And I'm like, well, I know how to dig a ditch. I run a small construction company. It can't be that difficult, right? Flipping a house. And that was it, dude. I went to a seminar. And for the first time in my life, I started hearing the vocabulary and the insights of entrepreneurship. So
you took that, it's the educational course. You go in and then you bought this educational program.
Yeah, I did $27,000 worth of education programs when my house was in pre-foreclosure. And it all went on my wife's credit cards. And I straight up, she looked at me on that Sunday morning and she said to me, "What do you think?" And straight up, as I'm standing here in my office in Boston, I looked at her and I said, "Baby, I can't keep doing what I've been doing. I just can't. There aren't any more hours in the day. The results that I've got have not given me joy. They've actually given me pain. They've hurt all of my personal relationships. I don't know what to do other than try something different. And I believe that this is the path." And she looked at me and it's funny. She says to me, "Go get him, killer." She said, "I'm proud of you and I love you and I'll support you in whatever you want to do." And I looked at her. I said, "Good, because we got to put 27 grand on your credit cards. I don't have any credit." And she became my She became my first private investor or private lender is kind of the way I looked at her.
Well,
And I just went at it with a vengeance. I went at it with firefighter mentality. When everybody else was running out, I went running in. I didn't ask questions. I believed in what I was learning. I started to get financial education as well as real estate processes, systems, and education. I just straight up did it. And I remember looking around me, and my classmates were fading away like they'd invested thousands of dollars in themselves as I had. And yet I'd look around and I go, where did everybody go? Where is everyone? Guys, come on. We're going to be financially free. Let's go. Let's go.
So I have a question.
There's nobody there.
I have a question, Dave. Now, this is an interesting one, but as I listen to you, do you think that your success, because that educational program, you were all in the room, you all had the books, and frankly, or candidly, the instructions are in all of these books, whether that's an educational program that you bought, college, whatever, like they're there. And what I've found is that most people actually just don't do it. But do you think that your ability to jump off that cliff and cross the bridge was because you were at rock bottom? This is really the crux of my question. Like, is it that you were that desperate and that's what differentiated you? Do you think that people need to be in that spot, or can they be in a different spot?
Dude, that's so insightful. And I mean that sincerely. That's a great question. And I can answer it with clarity because it's coming from two places. One is desperation. When I got sober, a guy said to me, he said, I got the gift of desperation. And we think desperation is bad. It was a gift for me, right? The gift of desperation, the gift of financial ignorance, the gift of getting hurt over and over and over again and still standing up and trying to do it the same way, expecting a result. Failing every single freaking day at trading time for money and trying to find joy and freedoms. It's a fool's game. So yeah, I was rock bottom, but I had exhausted all options for me. Now that's me. Guy said to me one time, he said, pick the floor that you want to get off of the elevator. You can go all the way to the basement 1, basement 2. He said, or you can choose to get off on the 5th floor, the 10th floor, whatever floor you want. Is what you're doing working for you? And if it isn't, are you going to do something different? So yes, rock bottom was a component. But here's the other one, and I think this one is actually more powerful. When I invested in myself, I purchased accountability. And I'm going to say something on this call with you that I don't think I've said before. The company that I invested money with and the program that I was supposed to implement was horrible. The customer service was dog doo-doo. The ability to implement what they were learning was challenging. I paid for 5 specific classes, and to this day, I only ever attended 2.
Good Lord. But you did, but those were key then.
Look, man, you just said it. All the instructions are in the book. They're in a $14.99 book. They're in a a one-day virtual seminar. All the answers are there. The pieces that are missing for me was accountability. My brain is wired this way, that when I flip that switch and I make a decision, there's no going back. If you can see behind me right now, there's a couple of old Victorian diagrams of the heart, right? I'm not a real big tattoo guy, but I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm ready to tattoo a heart where my heart goes on my chest, because above it is going to go the words, with every beat, underneath it will say, I move forward. Because for me, it's just been a theme in my life, man. As soon as I stand still, if I parallel, if I overthink, I've lost. So I just make a commitment to always be in forward motion. And that, my friend, is maybe what the differentiator. And I
But
can't look.
they
This is
held you
my DNA.
accountable. They held you accountable. I'm interrupting, but they really, I mean, it was that accountability that was like, hey, Dave, did you do this on Friday? Like,
No, no, Brendan. It wasn't them that held me accountable, brother. It was my wife and myself.
ah,
She's like, "What are you doing, big boy? Huh? What are you doing? Did you do the marketing thing?" Because look, here's what I found out with that particular company was they don't care about my success. It was an investment for them, you know. And what was interesting was this: is that I became the student extraordinaire because I actually did the stuff, right? And then they look at me and they go, "Man, you're out there, you know, kicking ass and taking names." And I'm like, "Thank you very much." And again, to my point, isn't everybody? And they went, "No. Do you want to teach some of this?" I'm like, "What? Do you want to teach it?" I'm like, "What do you mean teach it?" I'm like just coming out of almost losing my whole life, and you want me to start teaching it? Well, look, man, you're just implementing what you're learning and you're getting results. That's all you need to teach. Don't lie. Don't stand there and say you're a gazillionaire when you're not. Tell your story and tell the truth. And that was how I transitioned out of, you know, just being a student to being an educator before the TV show, which was interesting.
Well, were you still in England?
No, no, this is all in the States.
So how did you get across that pond?
Sex. But I was drinking back then. I was in school in London, and I met a girl in a local ale house, and she was American, and we were dating. And look, man, I've made some decisions in my life. Her visa ran out. I'm like 19 and a half years old, and she's like, "My visa ran out. I got to go home." I'm like, "Okay, you want to get married?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay." So I emigrated on a fiance visa at the age of 20 years old. And
there we go. Now I finally know how we let you into this place, Dave.
Sex, man. It was sex. You know, it's funny. I went from London, England, and we landed in Shadyside, Ohio, right in the middle of the Rust Belt in 1986. Beer bellies, ball caps, and chewing tobacco, man. I'm like, what the heck is this place? This is crazy, man. They called everybody yuns and y'all. And then I moved across the Ohio River because I wanted to, you know, up my game a little bit. Started living in Wheeling, by God, West Virginia.
Oh, my God. I never knew that, Dave, actually.
Yeah, man. I sold chemicals to Moundsville State Penitentiary. That's where Charlie Manson was locked up.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I've seen some stuff, brother. Yeah, it was a trip. It was a trip. You know, I'm still drinking back then. I got sober at 23. So
okay,
I left West Virginia and moved up to New England.
Okay. Now we got some context. You're here in the States. You got across because of sex. You've got yourself a visa because you married into it. All legal, of course, but interesting way to do it.
Yeah.
And you take this course, you follow the directions, you get a little bit of success, and they offer you to be an instructor, and you say, why not?
Yeah, and here's what was interesting was this, is that they say be an instructor, but what they're really saying is sell our education programs. That's what they're offering me to do, right?
On a commission, probably.
Yeah, it was a commission basis. Sure, it was a commission basis. And it was interesting for me because I found myself on the other side of the curtain, if you will, in real estate education. And I learned very quickly that there is good and then there is very, very bad in that arena. You know, a lot of these smaller educators, you know, are just selling bullshit in a box for $1,000 is what I call it. And, you know, there was a lot of that out there, you know, 10, 12 years ago. The internet was not as strong as it is today. And the good news is that a lot of those clowns, those predators are out of the education space today. And, you know, there's other companies that just grew too quick and couldn't fulfill and couldn't help their client base. And then there's other companies that just made decisions that were good for them and not for their clients. So for me, I started on this journey of education, and check this one out. I'm in San Francisco and I was presenting for a gentleman who did multifamily investing. And there's maybe 400 people up there, and I'm doing an hour and a half presentation, and they could invest in a home study course with some CDs and stuff, the typical things that were out there. And this lady came up to me, and she was an Asian lady, and she said, Dave, 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 Dave. I'm like, and I recognized her from other events that I had spoken at. And she said, Dave, you got to help me. I'm like, how can I help you? And she said, you got to help me do a quick wholesale deal. I said, why? She said, I can't buy anything else. I'm like, well, what do you mean? She said, I got $110,000 on my credit cards, and I haven't done a deal. I need your help. Brandon, how many courses and how many coaching programs do you need to buy to get up to $110,000? And look, man, I went, I just looked at her and I said, I don't know what to tell you, darling. I said, other than the fact that we live in America and you could file bankruptcy. And she started crying. And she said, I work for the Postal Service. Not Postal Service. She said, I work in a government agency. She said, if I file bankruptcy, I lose my job. And I never forget that lady. And I kind of took it to heart. And that was the day that I almost quit educating. And one of the old timers in the education space touched gloves with me, and he said, what's the matter? You're not the energetic guy that I know you to be. I'm like, I can't do this, man. He's like, why? And I told him, I said, look, I'm just coming out of the worst financial situation I've ever experienced in my own life. And now I'm standing on these stages in front of 400 people sharing the love and the hallelujah for wealth creation through real estate. He said, David, he said, here's the thing. You don't have to be the expert. You just report the other experts' successes. He said, do you believe that the guy that you're representing does what he says he does? I said, yeah, I've seen his apartments. I know him. I know him personally. Yes, I'm proud to stand next to him. He said, then if you're okay with that, then understand this. He said, real estate education and training is based more around hope than anything else. He said, that's the commodity. What does Tony Robbins sell? He sells hope. Hope that your business is going to be better. Jack Canfield, influential guy in my life, sold me hope that if I do the things that they do, I will get the results that they get. And he said to me, if you're okay with that, then stay being an educator and a platform speaker. And I wrapped my head around it and committed to it. And it was a dual race for many years. My income was from both training and educating, as well as my own real estate businesses. And, to this day, I'll help. If somebody calls and I can help them, I'll help them. I don't, I'm not always charging money for my influence today. I've been blessed to be where I am. So, it was a powerful journey. And then one day, I got a TV show being offered to me.
Yeah. So how's that? So just, like we can't, we just can't skip that. I just got a TV show. Well, Dave, I got to drive actually down to LA today. Maybe I'll stop at the gas station and somebody offer me a TV show. I don't know.
Look, I had, think about it, right? You and I are on this podcast together. You're on the other side of the country, right? I'm from the other side of the world. And yet I find my people, right? I find my people. And my people at that time in my life were real estate educations and trainers, online business guys and girls. These were the guys who created ClickFunnels. These were the guys who could put butts in seats at seminars. These were, your Gary V's and the rest of those guys. And they're like, I just began to change my environment. And there was a guy, Russell Brunson is his name, if anybody's familiar with Russell. And he wouldn't even know that he did this for me. I got to touch gloves with him and just let him know that it was his fault. But Russell Brunson sent out a blast email to a few select people saying that there was a company in New York that was looking to bring back the house flipping genre, right? It's a production company. Now, it was the same production company that had done Flip This House, right? Flip This House had met its peak in 2007. Market, crashes out. Nobody wants to talk about flipping houses. So those all went away. And then we were the first ones to come back in 2010 or 11 was around there. But he sent me it was funny, he sent me a vanilla application for a download to apply for this show. I've been around enough entrepreneurs, and you'll testify to this, right? How do I separate myself from the pack so that I get noticed? I've been around enough marketers and entrepreneurs to know that if I was going to fill out an online app, I was either going to get buried in the stack or I was going to get recognized. So I got myself recognized by filling out my application with the most horrendous profanity I could think of.
Oh my God.
Yeah. What the opening line was, name of your company, and then fill in the block. And I write in there, Go F Yourself LLC. That's the name of my company, right? Describe your team players. Look, dipshite, I said in the thing. I'm Big D. I'm the real estate British bulldog of real estate and laughter. I'm also a kick-ass mofo firefighter. When everybody else goes rushing out, we go running in. I kick the crap out of this, and I just kept going and going and going. And I'm saying, please don't come down and kick me in the butt, Grandma, right? And the theme throughout my profane tirade on the application was, don't call me, right? Don't call me. Just get on a plane, train, or an automobile, come to Boston, let's start filming, forget all the stuff in between. Let's go, baby, go, right? Send. I hit send. 15 minutes, Brandon, the phone rings, 212 area code in New York. So I picked up the phone, and I look at the phone, and I go, I thought I told you not to call me, you a-hole.
Did you really?
As I'm standing here. And then I'm like, please call back. Please call back. Please call back. He calls back again. The kid's laughing his ass off on the other end of the phone. He says, you're either a lunatic or a genius. I said, I thought I told you just come film it. Come on, let's go. We're going to have some fun, brother. I got this for you. And that's where it started. And they filmed a little. We did one season. We figured that would be the end of it. And we got the highest ratings in that time slot for A&E on a Saturday morning. And then they call up and they go, okay, we need 13 more episodes. And I'm like, that's 13 houses. You know what I'm saying? So
because each episode, I remember watching you, it is a project.
Correct.
Into itself.
Correct. Yeah, and you got to remember, brother, we're in New England. You know, we got some old stuff here. We don't just put paint and carpet in it and say, oh, look at this fantastic flip, you know, like they do in Las Vegas or some of these other markets, you know what I mean? So, you know, we had to go deep. We had to grind. And it was a blessing. You know, it was a blessing. It put me in a position where I can touch gloves with guys like you. Let's be frank, right? It puts me in a position where I can do business with, you know, at a high level. I mean, I've shared arenas with Tony Robbins, with Pitbull, with, you know, Damon John through our common connections. You know, that guy was good to me. He treated me well and he gave me opportunities. So, you know, the TV show was great for that. You know, one day I'm sitting in the firehouse and the next day I'm on the Today Show and I'm a pundit on CNBC and I'm sitting next to the vice president of the Federal Reserve and he's asking my opinion.
On real estate.
On real estate, on the market. And I'm like, oh, I got to stop. You know what was funny? I remember that moment vividly because seriously, we were on Squawk Box. It's myself and my old business partner, Pete. And we're on Squawk Box and there's Joe and Andrew and Becky Quick, I think her name is, the girl on Squawk Box, the lady on Squawk Box. And they bring this guy on. He was the vice president to the Federal Reserve. And he looks at me, the VP, he looks at me and he asks me a question. I'm the last one on the end. And I'm like, he just asked me a question, right? And I had this moment of insanity, Brandon, where in my head, I'm going, run, Forrest, run. Like you phony son of a, right? You phony son of a gun, get out of there. Like slide off of the chair and go away. And then in that nanosecond, the voice of truth, for want of a better term, overpowered it. And that voice had a lot of profanity in it in my head. I'm a firefighter at heart, right? And it was like, no, you ain't going anywhere. You earned it. You bought accountability. You implemented what you learned. You went the extra mile. You never gave up. You never laid down. You never surrendered. You earned the freaking right to sit on a panel anywhere with anybody at any time. And it was funny. I remember I watched a clip of that particular moment, and you saw my body language, man. I'm like, run, Forrest, run. I have all this internal dialogue in nanoseconds, and I'm like, as a matter of fact, I appreciate you asking me that question. I was going to pontificate on that one myself. Blah, 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 blah. And some pure and utter brilliance came out of my mouth. So, it was, the TV show was a blessing and a curse. A blessing for its exposure, a curse for its financial benefits. Like, the people are out there right now that they kill their grandmother to get a reality TV show, because apparently it gets you a job in a big White House somewhere later on down the line. I don't know if
it worked for him.
Work for him, right? I don't know. Probably won't work for me because I'm an immigrant to the United States.
Well,
I wasn't born here. You wouldn't have to do any birth thing. I got a British passport. But anyway, no, I don't. I have an American passport and a British one. Just don't tell the English. But it was interesting. It was interesting. I've been talking to one of the executives at A&E past couple of weeks. And we recently brought on Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank onto our advisory board on the fund that we have right now.
Well, let me stop you real quick, because I want to get back so that people know where we are now. Now, you've done the show. You've done educational programs with Flipping Boston and your own personal Dave Seymour stuff. And now you have come up with the idea. Now, it'd be very hard to argue that you've had a ton of experience. And one thing I do want to say, on that panel, I think that people in general, I think we all have those imposter syndrome type feelings. But the bottom line is, when you're in the trenches, when you're doing the work, you actually know what is actually happening versus being a professor. Not that I don't like professors, but studying it is very, very different than being it. It's like an entrepreneur. Like, you can study being an entrepreneur. You can want to be an entrepreneur. But until you put your head on the pillow as an entrepreneur with a payroll due on Friday, you just teachers aren't, you're not going to study it and then teach it and be effective. Like, until you can go to bed at night knowing that you've got a payment on that house that you're flipping that's doing a balloon payment in 90 days if you don't flip it, there's just like, I wouldn't want to learn from anybody who was just studying it. So
I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old boy at home, and we were sitting on the couch last night, end of the day, just watching a little bit of mindless TV. And my oldest one, Jefferson, he's 10 years old, and he looks at me and he goes, "Dad, what should I get? Should I get like a doctorate, a master's, or what's the one underneath that?" I go, "I think they call it a bachelor's." He goes, "Well, what do you have, Dad?" I said, and I'm like, I said, I got an associate's degree in fire science. He goes, what's an associate's degree? I said, it's the easy one. That's why I got it.
I think everybody gets caught. I grew up with a single mom, and I always say, like, I'm overeducated with all these degrees, because if you come from a single parent and it doesn't have a lot of money, you're gonna want your kid to have all these degrees because it's insurance policy. But the truth of the matter is that it's the experience that really counts. And those are the
how do you get the experience?
Well, you get the experience either by learning from someone who does it or going to do it.
And going and doing it. And look, man, every time I've ever walked out onto a platform to share education through real estate investing, I always open up with a line. What do you want? Why are you here? Right? And people go, more money, more this, more that. And I said, so great. You want more knowledge. Is that correct? Yeah, knowledge, Dave. Teach us. I said, awesome. I'm going to teach my ass off these 3-4 days for you. I said, but let me ask you a question. Would you all agree that knowledge is, and then they all finish the sentence, power? And then I've always said, is it? is it really knowledge is powerful? Because the end of the equation is the implementation of the knowledge. And that's where 99.9% of the people fail. I have trained and coached guys from Harvard University with degrees coming out of every orifice of their body, the smartest people under the sun. And this bulldog firefighter from Lynn, Massachusetts, went in there and more than quadrupled what they were financially doing in their lives because of the fact of the implementation was the scariest part. And a lot of people will wallow in the joy of knowledge. Oh, let me learn some more. I'm going to learn some more and some more. So that knowledge piece was always very interesting to me going forward, was the implementation being the most powerful component.
I think that's, yeah, it makes really good sense. It's a great insight. And I was thinking about it as I was listening to you. I'm overeducated, I guess, if you call 2 masters and $150,000 worth of it, not including my undergraduate and some postmaster's work at another place nearby my house. But I think, the people that I learned the very most from are mentors, or coaches, or whatever the right word is, who are actually doing their business.
Correct.
And those are the people that I would. I have a mentor who's in the real estate business, built 2 real estate companies, took one public. Warren Buffett bought it. He's on the board at Walmart. And those lessons, he barely graduated college, made a ton of money, but those lessons it was because, and I used to fish on Fridays with this guy, is because I could hear what was actually going on because he's on the phone on the way to the river, the way to the bay, with what's happening and doing that. So I don't want to get off track there, but I think it's an important lesson for people. 2 lessons there is learn from people who are actually doing it. Not that school and professors aren't important, but the people in the trenches who put their head on the pillow at night knowing what it means. And then 2 is the takeaway is it's really execution. Like at some point, I almost like, this is not even in my self-interest or yours, Dave, but it's like, hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you've listened to like 90 of my episodes, stop listening and go do it.
Do something.
Like, don't listen to any more education. Like, you've got enough knowledge to just go spend half of it implementing. But anyway, let's get back to the story. You've got this, you do this, I don't even know what to call this tactic. Cussing, profane application. Guy calls you up. You hang up on strategy. I don't even. You hang up on him. He actually calls you back. He starts taping, and you wind up with this top-rated show called Flipping Boston. You do some education. Obviously, goes along with it. You wind up on these crazy panels, but you do know all this information because by this time, you had 4 seasons, which is at least 13 houses a piece or something?
Yeah, no. So we ended up season 1, the first order came in for 13 houses. And then once that order is fulfilled, then you see how your ratings are and they order more. So we ended up doing 3.5 seasons, 29 episodes or 29 houses.
29.
Amazon Prime has got all of our shows on there right now, which is a trip. I actually got a royalty check because it's playing in Turkey, and I got a royalty check for like $500. I mean, I was styling, man. I went out to dinner that night and had a party, but it's kind of interesting. We did all of those episodes, and it just brought a lot of traction with it. But the real estate business and the education space were always working in tandem, Brandon. I never did all of one thing rather than anything else. And as I alluded to earlier, the actual making of a show didn't create income for me. I mean, at the end of it, I think it was like $30,000 an episode. And I had to split that with my old business partner, Pete. I wasn't getting any Kardashian money, no dunk money over here.
But it is a platform. I was actually,
of course.
I was just an aside, and I want to get to your fund that you built with all this experience and bringing that actually to to the, I don't know what you call a normal person who wants to buy into an opportunity. But speaking of Russell Brunson, I actually am really mad at Russell Brunson. I want you to know that.
Uh-oh.
And we all come from, and I think you were just in maybe a different circle. I was an online marketer since 1996. And we all ran in the same circles. I mean, there's a whole group of those. That's, Frank Kern, there's a Frank Kern, there's a Perry Belters.
Frank Kern, Matt Basak. I mean, we know all the same guys.
I ran I was on the East Coast. I ran in sort of a quieter circle, mainly because I had this fishing site and everybody was like, you're never going to make money with that. Little did they know that turning all that traffic into, but here's why I'm mad at Russell. So I guess there's a double-edged sword. Russell is telling all of our secrets in these damn books that he's writing. Okay. And I bought every one of the damn books because I want to see it. Now, I guess the dirty secret is no one actually reads the book, so I'm not that worried. But if you read the book, I'm reading his new Traffic Secrets. I just get madder every book. When I see him, I feel like I'm going to punch him in the face or hug him. I don't know which one, but I'm so mad at him. But he told a story which is true because I remember it about the celebrity apprentice in Arsenio Hall. And the long and short of it is Arsenio couldn't raise money. And it was mainly because he didn't have this platform anymore to really do anything. So it's really important to always keep your platform going so that you have this vehicle because it allows you opportunity. Agreed.
And if I was brutally honest, I allowed influences to, I don't know what's the right word to use, Brandon, but I allowed influences to lessen or soften the impact I could have had with that opportunity of the TV show. There were times where I'd be in a decision-making process and like every fiber of my body is screaming, go right. And yet the influences and the other members around me are screaming, go left. And I'm like, guys, you don't see what I see. Let's go right. And there were times I've got some regrets as to how that platform could have been elevated better, right? How it could have been, presented in a different way. But man, I got to be grateful for the gifts, and then at the same time learn my own lessons. I got to fail forward.
Well, you got plenty of time, Dave. There's plenty of time. And here's the thing that I am working on. One of my companies has a pretty big project, and there's a gentleman there who has a ton of experience. And I've learned some things. He said, Brandon, what you've described, which I described a situation very similar to yours, Dave, which is I knew, in fact, I knew it. My wife knew it. We were in a business relationship. And I was like, this is fundamentally not right. Like, you are not going in the right direction. And just every ounce of me. But there's this thing that humans do, which they romanticize that person could know more. And it's one of these things where if you were just so egotistical and you were willing to just be like, no, I'm always right, you actually might have done better, but there's this crazy balance that if you do that, then you miss. But I romanticized, as it sounds like you did, that they knew more than I do. And I was open to them being right because they've had success, right? But this is one of those things that just because the past says that it happened doesn't mean that they know the future. And I think that that's just a natural thing, Dave, that humans romanticize this idea and there's this crazy balance. Now, I think the good news probably for you and I is, at least I can speak for myself, Dave, I will never, ever make that mistake again. Now, not that I won't believe someone, but this one decision that was made that I fundamentally knew was wrong, I will never make again. And
agreed.
I would say the same thing, right?
Yeah, agreed. I'm in a CEO position today, and that position affords me to live and die on my own decisions, right? It affords me to die on my own sword. To be able, build a business, right? Building a business requires core competencies of multiple people. And as the CEO of the company, I think I got it the easiest because here's the way I look at it. Today, I just identify the very best people that I can in the core competencies that I need fulfilled. And then I get out the way. Every single freaking time I try and put my finger in the pot and add my genius expertise in a specific area, marketing, for example, where I have none, right? Every time I do that, I screw it up. And then I got to go back and say to my team, guys, I apologize. I thought I was, doing the right thing. So I've learned those lessons. I think, it comes down to humility, but then at the same time, having a rock solid vision for where the company is going to go. And don't deviate from that. Like I say to my guys all the time, is this specific thing going to add or detract from our core vision? You tell me and be honest about it. Yeah, it's going to detract. Done. Next. What about this? Done. Next. That way I know that that forward motion, is not being deterred at any time. And look, that isn't easy because, if you're a good guy or a good girl and you like people, you kind of want to entertain ideas. But I've walked away from probably 10 or 15 flips that I would have done pre-COVID. I've had to shut down lines of communication because they're becoming a nagging in my head. Like, dude, you haven't bought value in so long. I can't entertain it anymore. I got to go. And it's not always hard if they're friendships. You know what I'm saying? If it's friendship driven, it's tough.
Always.
It's tough.
I'm going to wrap it up with this one comment and then talk about your new venture.
Yeah.
The Freedom Venture is, here's what I've learned over all my years and all the companies I've tried and the ones that I've had success is, if I go into the room as a CEO and I'm the smartest guy, I'm scared as you know what, because at that point, we're probably in trouble because you can't know all those things deep enough. And in those meetings, there needs to be people smarter than you. And you need to be able to have an ego that allows, look, any founder entrepreneur has an ego. Like anybody who says that that's not true and people try to make that to be a bad thing, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing as long as it's not taken to some crazy extreme. But at the end of the day, yeah, of course, people are like, oh, Brandon, you like to get a lot of attention. Yeah, I actually do. I like the media. I like the platform, just like you, Dave. Right? Like, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But I think the test there is if you're the smartest person in the room, your goal as an entrepreneur, founder, whether you're doing real estate or anything else, is to get people who are smarter than you. But with that, you actually, through all of this experience, really do have a ton of experience in real estate. And talk about your current venture. It sounds like you and I were talking before we got on, and we talked a little bit over email as leading up to this podcast. But you really see an opportunity right now to invest in real estate, and then talk a little bit about your approach on how people could be a part of this new thing to leverage all the experience that you have.
Oh, awesome. Look, real estate investing is there's really only two ways to do it. You can do it as an active investor or a passive investor. An active investor is what I've been for, 12 plus years of my career, from single family houses to small apartment houses to, larger apartment houses, to lending, to hard money lending, private lending, notes. It's just, that's what I do. It is my career, and I freaking love it. I jump out of bed and go play every day. So I'm active. Well, a lot of people say, I'm too scared to be a landlord. I don't want to go out and look at properties. I don't want to fix it. I don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, and trash. I just want to create income from real estate without doing any work. And that's a passive investor. So here's where we're at today with setting it up with those two options. And both are correct. The only wrong answer is to do nothing, right? So depending on somebody's DNA and processes, we see the opportunity right now because of COVID and all of the pain and misery that it's brought. But more importantly, and look, I don't want to be the doom and gloom, but the pain and misery it's going to bring in massive upheaval and chaos. It's just factual are created unprecedented opportunities in business and development and change. And, the people that are underneath the desk right now, the sky's going to fall Chicken Little, put their hands over their ears, believe all the BS that you get in media. They will be the losers at the end of the run. And I don't say it like you're a loser. I say that you're going to lose the opportunity that's in front of you. You'll be that person who pulls like a Hillary Clinton and looks over their shoulder and says, what the hell happened? And then there's the other group, which are the proactive rather than the reactive. And that's us, man. And again, no morality, no right or wrong, no good or bad, black, white. It doesn't matter. It's just an observation of implementation. So for us, instead of going, bear on everything, we went bullish on what we see as the opportunity that COVID creates. And for us, it's housing. It's multifamily complexes in the right market under the right conditions that we buy at the right price. Now, we were maybe 3 weeks into the COVID crisis, and I reconnected with a very good friend of mine who's what's called a syndicator. And he has purchased large apartment complexes throughout the Gulf Coast region of Florida. And he's done that for probably the past 15, 20 years of his career. And what he's done is he's raised approximately in his career $125 million of private funding. He's deployed that capital in that period of time. He spent it, i.e. bought assets with it. He's returned it back to the investors, principal preservation, plus a 20% plus internal rate of return that he's paid back to those investors for the lifetime of the capital. Now, for those of you who understand investing, we do what are called look backs, right? You look back and you gauge what investments have outperformed what other investments, and then their risk analysis. And if you look at commercial real estate investing in the multifamily arena, it's outperformed all other commercial asset classes, and it's obviously outperformed the stock market as well because of the volatility of the stock market. However, because people don't know anything about it, they don't invest in it. It's too scary. I don't know what that is. How does that work? So Walter connected with me and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm transitioning. I'm pivoting out of what I've been doing with my current investments. What's the landscape look like, Walter? What do you see? He said, the forbearances that have been levered against single family homes, when they are coming off of the assets and the bank puts their hand out and says, pay me, it's going to create a massive change. Something like 4 million forbearances in the country right now. And unfortunately, because of my blue collar mentality, which is prevalent, right? People are now paycheck to paycheck. And when the bank puts their hand out, what happens next? The bank has to tick the next box on their checklist, which says loan modification, short sale, foreclose. That's it. Those are the options that they're going to have, no matter what the government decides to do. So the bank is always going to get paid one way or another. So that creates a housing crisis in the sense of people are going to have to leave their homes and go somewhere else. So we look at that as an opportunity to be a great landlord, to be a good business and give great housing to people. So we focused on the Gulf Coast region of Florida, where Walter has done the majority of his business. That's our target market. And what we decided to do was this. He said to me, I don't want to do onesies, twosies, meaning one apartment complex or 2 or 3 apartment complexes individually each time. He said, if we raise $100 million, we do it under the Securities and Exchange Commission rules and regulations, which is a Reg D filing, a 506C. So if we do that, what we can do is not buy just one of them, we can buy them all. And he said, because of my track record in the marketplace, I'm going to get inbound calls from sellers, lowering our marketing costs. Our marketing is going to be all about outbound calls for capital to come into the fund. So it's like the levers on a gauge. One goes up and one goes down. So we went through the investment to create the fund. We went through the investment of building out our marketing strategies. And we are in that fundraise position right now. And what's interesting is this, is that we are already beginning to see the inbound calls coming in. We're already beginning to see a $5 million capitalization rate, which is coming in. They're verbal commitments at this point. But once I hit 5 mil, boom, I'm ready to go buy. I've got assets under management at that moment in time. And it's funny, I'm having a lot of conversations, Brandon, with a lot of investors. And when I start talking about our preferred rates of return and targeted capital, targeted returns on quarterly distributions and lifetime, it's like it's beginning to just get motion. A lot of investors are contributing and committing their retirement funds. So you allow them to come in through self-direction. So the way the fund works, real quick, is this: accredited investors only. SEC says an accredited investor earns $200,000 a year or more individually, $300,000 or more as a couple, $1 million in net worth, not including equity or their primary residence or equity in their primary residence. Now you're accredited. Once you're accredited, the SEC says you can now look at my alternative investments. Because you're intelligent enough to earn 200, you must be intelligent enough to understand real estate, which blows me away. Absolutely blows me away. The amount of people out there that are like 6 and 7 and 8 figure earners who don't understand the tax advantages of real estate, whereas it rolls off of my back. So accredited investors, $100,000 minimum commitment to the fund that buys them shares or units in the fund, and now they benefit from everything that's inside the fund rather than just one entity inside the fund. So that offers diversification and safety that you wouldn't get in any other kind of real estate transaction. 6% preferred rate of return, 8 to 12 targeted returns on quarterly distributions, and then 20 plus targeted returns for the life of the fund, which is 6 years. So it's an illiquid fund, meaning once the money's in, we're working it for 6 years. Can't raise your hand and say, I changed my mind. This is long pants, not short pants, right? It's big boy time. But for that, we can work capital very aggressively and safely at the same time because of our proprietary underwriting and then verticals to fix these assets, put new property managers in there, turn them around. And I could go on. I love this stuff. I could go forever. Lastly, I'm not interested in the big units. I'm not interested in the 180s to 300 unit apartment complexes. There's plenty of guys out there who are chasing those right now, and they're paying too close to retail for them. We're still pre-COVID in the sense of we don't see the results of fully of what COVID's going to do afterwards. We don't want those because it's like driving the Titanic. If you're trying to fix a huge ship and turn the corner, it takes way too long. We love like the 20 to 140, 160 apartment complexes. I think of those as like a little speedboat. We get in that little speedboat, we crank up the engine, we get rid of the crappy property managers, we lease up the empty units, we do a little rent increase, do a little bit of construction, flipping Boston on steroids, right? Little fluff and buff, nice kitchen. Oh my God, look at that, it's beautiful. Let's get the tenant base in, and then we can turn those faster so that we can meet those quarterly distributions to our investors. So that's it, big picture. I hope that was clear enough, but there's a lot of moving parts on our side. But on the investor side, it's easy. They just put money in and get a check every month.
Now, I got a question for you on the accredited investors. I've seen now with the new SEC rules, actually, and maybe this is a decision that you and your team have made on purpose, but isn't there an opportunity out there to take non-accredited investors with some new SEC rules with crowdfunding and things like that, Dave?
I like that question because what you're referring to is what's called a Reg A or Regulation A for Alpha Fund. Or it's called a Reg A fund if you like a little Bob Marley. what that does is it allows an investment company like ours to bring in non-accredited investors anywhere between, they can do 5,000 and up, I think it is. But what that does do, though, is it limits the amount of non-accredited investors into a certain investment fund. And that's up for the fund managers to determine that. But we know that we can fulfill this $100 million by the end of the year, get the capital in and get it back out and working. So this was an aggressive push, larger amounts of capital. I'm actually going to New York in a couple of weeks. I'm presenting up on Wall Street at a nice steakhouse out there to a bunch of ladies and gentlemen who have the financial ability to do very, very well with our funds. So,
you have kept it. You have kept it to only just for our listeners out there, so that you get a lot of inbound stuff. It is accredited investors, which meet that minimum income and or quote unquote
Correct.
net assets.
Yeah, correct. Accredited only for this fund. However, I wouldn't deter anybody from exploring, any education they can get from us and our company. I mean, I like you of, I'm born from an education world in a sense of I want to share, good stuff, things that work. A lot of folks that come through our funnel, right, the online funnel, a lot of folks that come through there are not accredited, but yet they can still get serviced with some video content that we deliver. There's an opportunity for a free download for a book that I wrote with my property manager.
And where can people get that at freedomventure.com or where do you offer?
Yeah, freedomventure.com. Yeah, that's the landing page or the front page of our website.
Mm-hmm.
If they scroll down to the bottom of that page, I don't advertise it because I want people to read, right? It's, do a little work, at least scroll down to find something.
Yeah,
and
of course.
At the bottom there, there's a link to download that book on unlocking the code. Yeah, if you scroll down, Brendan.
Okay.
Awesome. Scroll all the way down there.
Hey,
who's that handsome?
Let's talk about your team in a minute before we go.
Sure. There's Kevin. So there's a free download right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, I'm going to capture your email and your information. That's a nice little, it's a gift. It's something to whet somebody's appetite as to the commercial world of real estate investing. But understand that book is really written for the active investor more than the passive investor. We've got some nice articles there that we consistently put out.
Yeah, I see that. For anybody who's watching on YouTube, they'll see that. If you're on the podcast, you go to Freedom Venture. That's FREEDOM venture.com, and you'll get this. Now, it looks like you got the original shark from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, on board. How is that? Just from, I guess he was interested, obviously, in what you were doing, and you guys probably know each other over the years. Talk about that.
I'll tell you, man, it's a funny story, and I'll keep it as brief as I can. But as we began to get the infrastructure going for marketing, you got to make noise, man. You got to make noise in the marketplace. You got to have people interested. So I started breaking down a list of people that were influential that I knew personally who could, participate in some capacity or another. So I texted Kevin, and he's in Tampa, Florida, which is our market. So I texted Kevin. I said, "Look, man, this is what we're doing. Love an opportunity to do an interview, kind of like we're doing, Brandon, right? An expert to expert interview. Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about post-COVID, business, life, whatever." And I forgot I was talking to a shark. And he very masterfully, turned it into a position of, well, if we're going to put a lot of effort in, which I can, he said, because I'm really excited about what you're doing. He said, "I'd like to participate in the upside of the fund. How could I do that?" And I go back to my team and I'm like, I just got bitten by a shark, fellas, But part of me was playing the game too. Like I knew he'd take the bait as well. And we structured it so that Kevin came on as an advisory board member. And in return for that, we get to do a huge amount of co-marketing together. We already did one press release. We're looking to do another one in the next couple of weeks. And that makes noise, that makes waves, that creates interest. Kevin offers, just that business acumen, man. Just that business acumen. We went down to Tampa a couple of weeks back and actually shot like a 20-minute. It's an infomercial, man, but it's for kick butt real estate investors. Well, 3 and Kevin, just sitting at one of the apartment complexes by the pool in Florida, banging around ideas and conversation. It came out really, really well.
When is that going to be out, and where can we see it?
Yeah, I haven't released it yet because we're not exactly sure where it's going to fit, right? So you've got these gems of assets. You don't want to waste them. You know what I'm saying? So actually, when I get off this call today at 2:00, I got a marketing meeting with my guys, and that's at the top of the agenda.
Well, people would be able to find it when you do release it at freedomventure.com, right?
Yeah, if you go to Freedom Venture, there's a video there that you scrolled through that just is like a razzle dazzle piece to excite people about the Florida market. And then there's a button that you can press on that front page, Brendan, that says more information. And if
Okay.
you press on that button, it goes into some nice details. It talks about the methodology of our investing. It talks about the Floridian market, why we identify it. Talks about how learn more right underneath the investor portal there. Yeah, click on that. So what that'll do will take you to this summary. It gives you an opportunity to learn more about the company, the fund. That's a really cool video that we put together, kind of a sales piece that talks about the volatility of the stock market and why an alternative investment like this could be good for you. The metrics, the geographic focus, like I said, our methodology for investing and why we do what we do, 3 to 6 year hold. And then as an investor, just go through the information, and then there's an opportunity to register for more information. And if you clicked on that, what that would do is that would take you to an account setup page. And there's no commitment at this phase. We got to make sure that you're a fit for us as we are for you. It really is reciprocity in a two-way street. I've said it in the past. In my career, I've turned away capital because the person offering it wasn't necessarily a right fit for the project that we had. So once they're there, they can access the PPM, which is what's called the private placement memorandum. I can't just blast that out. People have to qualify to see it, and that's wrapping that up. It's heavy, man. It's 134 pages of legal jargon, but at the same time, it really proves somebody's commitment to these kinds of investments. Read through it, understand it, and then if they like what they read, they can just they'll know that one of our team members will reach out to them. We'll do a 20-minute onboarding interview, find out what their financial goals are. Some of these conversations have been this. You'll love this. Yeah, I just want a better rate of return on my money than the stock market. Is it secured in this fund? I said, well, yeah, the money's in the fund. There's no guarantees on anything. It's an investment, but here's our targeted return. And you've done it before? We have, not in the fund, but individually we've done it in the past, and we're bringing that methodology to the fund. Yeah, that works. Okay, good enough. Thank you. And then, they
yeah, and I'll just say, if anybody's listening that are new to that sort of investment, I mean, the 100-page thing, PPM, is just sort of standard operating procedures. So
yeah, it's a business plan. It's a business plan that meets all of the legal requirements. So,
exactly. Well, this is exciting. So you are targeting close at the end of this year, and then but as soon as you hit that threshold, Dave, you're going to start investing. That's how the fund starts, right?
As soon as we hit 5 million, we're investing. If we hit 3 million, we've only been in our raise phase for about 3 to 4 weeks right now. And it's kind of interesting watching the difference between raising capital in a fund and raising capital as a syndicator. You would see it. You're an experienced investor, right? You understand it. But the average investor out there, the doctors, the lawyers, the business owners, they know their business. They don't know ours. So it takes a little bit longer just to warm them up and get them engaged. But the goal is to have that 5 million is the no going back scenario. So once that 5 million's in, that money's out. But we got deals sitting in the pipeline right now that we could buy. Even if we only had 3 million in the account, we could go to work. And then the projection is we're confident that the 100 mil will be in the account and out on the street by the end of the year. And we're already fleshing out the big ideas around Fund 2. So this is my run, man. I'm 53. This is the next 20 years of my life. There's no deviation from this. And to your point earlier on, being mentored, I'm being mentored by a company right now. The CEO is a young gun, cool guy. They have $1 billion with a B dollars under management, assets under management. Check this out. They're trying to do one play right now to double their assets under management in one move. So I'm learning a lot from them. Because I'm humble, man. Teach me. I don't want to be the smartest guy. So I got good mentorship. I got fantastic advisory board, and great partners. So it's primed to do really, really well for our investors.
Well, honestly, Dave, wish you the very best of luck. But this just makes sense for your career. Like, this is how it works. This is going from being a firefighter to taking some seminar to becoming a teacher to flipping the houses and making a bunch of money to doing the show and doing whatever, 13 in the first season and 29 subsequently, and then doing your own investments. It just is a natural progression that you would raise a fund and take your expertise and knowledge and all of these other great team members that you have put together and put together a fund and just do it on a larger scale. I mean, it's a natural progression here for you. So I'm excited for you.
Look, man, with every beat of my heart right there on the wall, I make another step forward. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited for this opportunity for you. And I think if it's okay with you, we'll tune back in maybe end of first quarter. I know you're going to be busy.
Love it. Yeah.
But
I'll make time, man. Please. I'd love to. I'd be honored.
Talk about, what investments you've made and then how they're looking. And maybe we'll give it during that episode a little bit more insight into how you guys go through that secret sauce, if you will, deal flow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's somebody else's trial and error that has created, we call it the buy box. We don't deviate from the buy box because the buy box, it pays the investors. Why it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Just implement it. So
That's I'd love to, Dave, thank you so much for coming on board. The very best of luck to you. I'm rooting for your success, and we'll keep an eye out and have you back next year.